What happens when foods invented to keep a nation alive become objects of horror? Black pudding, hailed in Lancashire for centuries, cannot legally cross the U.S. border. Marmite, the salty byproduct that fueled soldiers in both world wars, is outlawed in Denmark. These British staples horrify Americans, yet each has a history of survival and scandal hiding in plain sight. The truth behind these acquired tastes might change everything you thought you knew about British culture. Black pudding is the kind of food that makes Americans wince before they even taste it. Yet for centuries, it was the pride of Northern England, especially in Bury, Lancashire, where market stalls have sold their signature blood sausage since the 1850s. The recipe is simple and unflinching. Fresh pig's blood, fat, and oats or barley are packed into a casing and boiled until firm. In medieval Britain, nothing from the slaughter was wasted. Blood spoiled fast, so it was mixed with grain and cooked the same day. A practical answer to hunger, not a dare. By the height of the Industrial Revolution, black pudding had become a breakfast staple for mill workers and miners, offering a cheap, dense hit of protein and iron long before supplements existed. Food historians describe it as the original energy bar for the working class. Eating just 100 grams covers half an adult's daily iron needs, a fact that made it essential during wartime rationing and lean years. Today, the British market for black pudding hovers around £30 million a year, with most of it still landing on breakfast plates. But across the Atlantic, the very idea of eating blood triggers a deep psychological barrier. In the United States, strict USDA rules on blood-based foods have quietly kept traditional black pudding off shelves since the early 1970s. The regulations require blood to be collected and processed under conditions few British producers can meet, effectively shutting the door on imports. For Americans, blood means injury, not food. For Britons, it is a reminder of thrift, survival, and a kind of culinary pride that refuses to flinch at the realities of where food comes from. As one food historian puts it, black pudding wasn't made to shock, it was made to get you through the day. Marmite began life in 1902 as a brewer's dilemma. Leftover yeast sludge from beer production was piling up, and someone had the bright idea to bottle it. The result was a tarry, vitamin-rich spread that would go on to split the nation. By the time World War I broke out, Marmite was being packed into soldiers' rations as a cheap, shelf-stable source of vitamins. It kept appearing through World War II, credited with preventing beriberi in troops and children alike. Today, 1 jar is sold for every 3 Britons, and about 25 million jars leave the factory each year. But Marmite is much more than a pantry item. Since the 1990s, its Love It or Hate It campaign has turned personal taste into national identity. For some, it is the taste of childhood breakfasts. For others, it is a dare best left unopened. A sensory scientist explains that Marmite's punch comes from glutamates, which trigger the umami taste. In Britain, this is comfort. In America, it is a shock to the system, salty, bitter, almost medicinal. Most Americans try it by the spoonful, which is a bit like eating a stock cube straight. The result is usually horror, not delight. Even Europe has had its doubts. In 2011, Denmark pulled Marmite from shelves because its vitamin content had not passed official approval. A bureaucratic headache, not a cultural crusade. Meanwhile, British expats keep the export market alive, shipping £8 million worth abroad each year. If you want to start an argument in a British office, just mention Marmite at tea break. The only thing more divisive than the taste is the question of who gets the last scrape from the jar. London's East End once thrived on the steady supply of eels from the Thames, with eel and pie shops anchoring nearly every high street. Today, only about 30 shops remain, their numbers dwindling alongside the eels themselves. Scientific surveys show a staggering 95% drop in young European eels returning to rivers since 1980. The species is now listed as critically endangered, squeezed by overfishing, pollution, and barriers that block ancient migration routes. For the families still running these shops, some tracing their roots back generations, the fight is personal. A shop owner now pays up to £12 for a portion of jellied eels that once cost pennies, and must import from Ireland or the continent just to fill the trays. The jelly, once a symbol of thrift and ingenuity, now marks a dish on the edge of extinction. For older regulars, a bowl of jellied eels is more than a meal. It is a taste of Cockney identity, one that may soon survive only in memory as both the eels and the culture they fed slip away. Spotted Dick has always been a source of snickers, but in 2009 the name became a full-blown council headache. Flintshire County Council, hoping to avoid childish jokes in the canteen, decided to rename the classic sweet pudding Spotted Richard on official menus. The backlash was instant and merciless. Newspapers pounced, radio hosts could not get enough, and locals lined up to defend the pudding's original name. Within weeks, the council reversed course, restoring Spotted Dick and giving the nation a brief, ridiculous lesson in bureaucratic overreach. But behind the humor, the pudding itself is a relic of Victorian practicality. Suet, raw beef fat, was cheap, easy to get from the butcher, and packed with calories. For manual laborers in the 19th century, a dense, steamed suet pudding filled with dried fruit was more than dessert. It was fuel for a day spent hauling coal or working in the mills. A nutritionist points out that a single serving could top 1,200 calories, just what you needed before modern heating and office jobs. Now sweet sales have dropped by 60% since 1990, and lighter sweets have taken over. Still, for many, Spotted Dick remains a taste of school dinners, grandparents' kitchens, and the stubborn comfort of tradition. Mushy peas divide Britain almost as sharply as they divide the Atlantic. In chip shops across the north, 15 million servings are dished out every year, bright green, soft, and unapologetically bland. Made from marrow-fat peas soaked overnight and simmered to a creamy mash, the texture alone sparks debate. For many Britons, that uniform softness is pure comfort, a taste of family dinners and Friday night takeaways. For Americans, the same bowl triggers instant recoil. Peas, they argue, should snap, not slump. Texture is one of the strongest drivers of food rejection, sensory psychologists say. Cultures that grow up with crisp vegetables often find purees off-putting, while those raised on mashes and stews see them as hearty and familiar. The electric green color, often boosted by food dye, only adds to the confusion. In the north, mushy peas are a badge of regional identity. Elsewhere, they are proof that taste is learned, not born. In the heart of Leicestershire, the Melton Mowbray pork pie is more than just a snack. It is a protected legacy. Since 2009, only pies made by about 70 accredited bakers within a 10-kilometer radius of Melton Mowbray can legally carry the name. That victory didn't come easy. Local pie makers spent 5 years in court, battling industrial giants who wanted to mass-produce lookalikes far from the town. The result was a hard-won protected geographical indication status, enshrining not just the name, but the tradition. Every authentic pie is hand-raised, filled with uncured pork, and finished with a natural jelly poured through the lid, a medieval technique that kept meat safe before refrigeration. For bakers like Dickinson and Morris, the jelly isn't a gimmick. It is the soul of the pie. The UK pork pie market now tops £60 million a year, much of it driven by the cachet of true Melton craft. Mince pies are the classic holiday curveball. The name alone sends Americans searching for meat, only to bite into a sweet, spiced jumble of dried fruit and suet. Centuries ago, these pies did, in fact, include minced beef or mutton, preserved with sugar, spices, and a splash of brandy. a medieval trick to keep meat edible through the winter. By the Victorian era, the meat quietly disappeared, but the name stuck around to confuse generations. Today, British bakers turn out more than 370 million mince pies every Christmas, fueling a seasonal market worth £150 million. British folklore insists eating 12 pies over the holidays brings good luck for each month ahead. A food historian sums it up: the recipe changed, the name didn't. That's why Americans are always surprised. For most Britons, mince pies are Christmas itself, no meat required. Today, foods once born from hardship are dismissed as oddities. Yet as food sustainability becomes urgent, the British waste not approach may outlast modern abundance. What we find unpalatable now could shape tomorrow's menus. The next taste revolution might just start with what we once refused to swallow.